What is up, guys? Speed here, and today I'm bringing you a top 5 list for buffs and nerfs in 7.21b. So I'm going to go over them and give my list of buffs and nerfs that I think are the most effective and the least effective. Alright, let's get straight into the buffs. So at number 5, I'm putting Timbersaw. Timbersaw received 2 buffs in this patch, the first being base intelligence increased by 2. And what this will do is allow him to use an extra whirling death in the landing stage. Just kind of a nice quality of life change. Definitely nothing too crazy, but definitely good for a hero that often has mana pool issues in the early game. And his next change is just a 1% stat loss increase, which is actually potentially notable in securing kills on strength heroes in the landing stage. So what I would say is this is definitely deserving of a number 5 on my buff list, but I wouldn't put him any higher in any patch change because it's more of a quality of a life change that in specific matchups will make him a little bit better. Coming in at number 4, we have probably the funniest change. Freezing Field Armor increased from 10 to 20. That means when you were channeling your ult as Crystal Maiden, you get 20 armor. You're pretty much like an axe using Berserker's Call, except you're just a little puny woman just spinning around some snow in a circle radius. You know, I mean, whatever works. Next thing you know, in the next patch, I'm calling it, they give her spell immunity. So Crystal Maiden, while channeling her ult, will have 20 armor and spell immunity. I think they'll be pretty balanced. Definitely a good change overall for the hero. And yeah, that's why she's number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3, we have a definitely what I think is a change that will go under the radar, which is Templar Assassin Meld debuff now stacks. Now what this does is it gives you a few different utility potentials. First off, what comes to my mind is TA's potential to Roshan. So Meld's armor debuff, if I'm not mistaken, works on Roshan. And because of this, you can now have 2 debuffs, which with a lot of armor strategies will enable you to get an early Roshan and control tempo as Templar Assassin. One of the main issues with the hero was that even with items, until you hit a BKB timing, a lot of lineups could easily kill you. You don't have a big HP pool, and Refraction often does not do nearly enough. I think getting an earlier Aegis with Meld debuff is really nice. In addition, because you can stack the Meld debuff, killing tankier units that TA would often struggle to kill is not nearly as hard now. So overall, I think this change is maybe even deserving of the number 2 or number 1 spot, simply because of the amount of options that it opens up for TA. Coming in at number 2 is Treant Protector. So Treant Protector received a notable buff in Living Armor, one that I actually think could potentially make him viable in specific situations. Now, the reason I think this change is so good is because it went from 25 damage block at level 1 to 40. This is very impressive. Living Armor at level 1 gets 4 damage instance blocks, which means at level 1, you block a total of 160 damage. That is actually insane. 160 damage? That is like pretty close to Sven's old Warcry at level 2. That was 220 damage block, but it couldn't block magical damage. This one has the potential to even block spell magical damage in the early game, which is absolutely absurd. So I think this hero's potential might be in lanes where you don't have to pressure the lane, but can play static and help other lanes, is where he's going to thrive. Maybe with an Enigma who can pull the lane back, or against a hero like Lifestealer who can't necessarily pressure him out in the early levels. And finally, we have Storm Spirit at the number 1 position for buffs. And the reason I'm putting Storm at number 1 is I really think this hero needed almost a complete overhaul to really make him viable again with this current meta and how mana regeneration works and the changes to Bloodstone. What I'm seeing here is a change that gives him the ability to lane significantly better. Also, what it does is it potentially revolutionizes the skill build that he can go. Maybe not revolutionizes it, only because it is going to shift more towards what it used to be, where you would leave Static Remnant at level 1, simply because its mana cost then is only 70. What this will do is it will allow you to max out the Overload and make that your damage, rather than having to max Static Remnant and Overload. Because of this, you can put an early point in Electric Vortex, which will increase your kill potential, and Electric Vortex also got buffed, so it's also a pretty decent level 1 spell. A 60-second cooldown at level 1 can actually increase your DPS quite a bit, because it does give you an overload stack. I'm hoping these changes really do give Storm some viability, especially in the early game and his ability to farm, but we'll have to see. Alright, let's next get into the nerfs of the patch. So first off, what I wanted to say is that I'm leaving IO out of this change, out of this video I should say, simply because IO it just had to get nerfed, and there was no doubt in my mind it would be the #1 nerf, unless Valve was actually insane. So if you're curious about the IO nerfs, definitely check them out. They're just kind of overall like half the hero in many senses. Just a lot of things that made the hero broken are now removed, and because of that, I think IO is in a much better place now. Still probably broken because of the hero's concept, however, really nice changes. And one other honorable mention I want to make was Chaos Knight, and the purpose of this is that I think Chaos Knight is not nearly as good as an offlaner, but I think for mid CK it's not that big of a deal. So mid CK has not been that popular, but there are a large bunch of players who are experimenting with it and having success, and for that I would recommend trying Chaos Knight mid more than CK offlane now, but we'll have to see. Alright, now let's get into number 5 for nerfs. Number 5 is Grimstroke. I think this nerf hurts him quite a bit, where Inkswell at level 1 goes from 1.4 to 1. In addition, at all other levels, it is decreased. At max, it's almost the same. However, what made Grimstroke so strong, in my opinion, was his early game presence. Obviously, his teamfight is devastating as well, but I mean in terms of Inkswell, which has constantly gotten nerfed now, and now that it's only a 1-second stun, it's really going to hurt this hero's kill potential in the early game. Do I think it's still a good hero? Yes, and that is why I'm putting it at number 5. However, the hero is still nerfed in other ways too, which is Soulbind, in which the slow got reduced quite heavily, especially at level 3, down 15%. So next up we have Caudill, and Caudill's Will-O-Wisp has been nerfed multiple times over the past few patches, and as a result the hero is probably going to slowly lose favor, this one being very devastating, which is Will-O-Wisp being cast a second time will follow the same tick interval as the first, and what this means is that Refresher Orb on Caudill is not nearly as good. You could pretty much chain stun people with Will-O-Wisp. It was absolutely broken in the late game. There was very little you could do about it unless you had a hero with a BKB, such as Chug, Lifestealer, or a high attack speed hero with an actual BKB, in which case you'd have to waste the entire duration just to kill some Will-O-Wisps. Now, in order to use Refresher on Caudill effectively, you actually have to separate them and have 2 different zones, but you can't chain stun people, essentially, so definitely hurts the hero a lot, and that's the reason why I put him at number 4. He still has all of the utility in the early game, however his late game is definitely chopped. Next up at number 3 we have Magnus Support. Now, the reason I'm specifying Magnus Support is that I think offlane Magnus isn't terribly affected by this, mainly because the changes revolve around mana cost and early game slow. So the Skewer slow, first off, is the same at level 4, so when you have this maxed out, it's just as good. However, for Support Magnus, in which the slow is quite useful, not to say that it isn't for offlane Magnus, but more so for Support Magnus, the slow is 15% lower at level 1, a huge deal. In addition, the mana cost for Empower is 15 mana more at level 1, which also hurts Support Magnus more, because you had to constantly spam it for your carry. In the offlane, it hurts you, but you'll be getting items such as Mana Boots and Soul Ring a lot earlier, which will help negate these issues. In addition, you'll have levels, and because the mana cost is the same at level 4, having more levels makes these nerfs less impactful. Next up, we have Visage at number 2. I thought Visage was a good hero, but I really didn't think it would get nerfed like this. At level 1, the familiars do 10 less damage, and that might not seem like a lot, but how familiars work is that they attack a lot. They don't do high damage per attack, they just attack a ton. As a result, having a 10 damage nerf decreases the farming efficiency you have by 33%, and overall is just crushing to the hero for killing heroes early. In addition, because you have 2 familiars, a 10 damage nerf is actually a 20 damage nerf. Overall, in my opinion, I don't know if this is going to kill Visage, but I just don't see the viability in the hero as it's not that good early anymore. And finally, at number 1, a hero we definitely all expected to get put into the ground, which is Sven. I didn't know they would do it this hard, but let's go over the changes. So Great Cleave is now reduced. At level 1 it's not nearly as good, which hurts his potential harass in the laning stage. You actually could use Great Cleave as a harass tool. Now it's only good really if you max it out. 30% at level 1 is okay, but it's not great. Next up we have Warcry. This is where it starts to matter. At level 1, it's only 5% instead of 8%, which is not terrible, not the end of the world, but what's more noticeable is that the Warcry shield has been heavily nerfed from 80 to 60. In the early game, 20 damage is quite notable, and it stays that way for all levels. Do I think Sven has viability? Yes, because it is still a support that gives you movement speed, it is still a support that has a stun, and it's still a strength hero that can buy stout shield in the laning stage. But as a carry, it's really in a weird spot. Having Great Cleave worse early on means that you're gonna have to put points into it if you want to farm effectively with it. But what is most notable that crushes Sven carry is the God Strength change, making the cooldown from 80 to 100. With the cooldown at 80, you already had problems, simply because the duration is not nearly close to that. Sven is almost a non-factor without his ultimate in the carry role, and 20 seconds where you're just still a non-factor is crushing. It's absolutely crushing. And this is why it kind of makes the hero a lot less of a flex in my opinion, because you can't run it as a carry or an offlane to its full potential. And as a result, I put it at the #1 spot for nerfs. Alright, thank you guys for watching this video. Together, we reached 100,000 subscribers, and we've got a little something special for you. Like this video and comment down below. And I put it at the #1. Special for you. Like this video. Not want to see that? Go back to the previous video, the one on timings, and like a different comment, or just like position 1 lich. I put it at the #1. Be on position 1 lich is the strongest hero in Dota. So if you felt like I missed anything or skipped over a notable change, definitely let me know in the comments below. And of course, don't forget that if you want to learn more about Dota and get interesting information in videos similar to this one, check out gameleap.com, where I make guides just like this one all the time and post them up on there for you guys to learn. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Once again, don't forget to like and subscribe as it helps the channel grow.